Hello, I'm Dr. Martha Leatherman.
And I'm Dr. Beth Godey, and we're here today to talk to you about home safety, including the safety of people with dementia or Alzheimer's who are living at home. Now, this is the second of 3 20-minute segments on this topic. We'd really like you to see the first segment because in that segment we cover some major principles that we'll use to help you figure out some safety issues in your own home. But you certainly don't have to watch all 3 segments all at the same time. Do it at your own pace.
The segments are all available at www.mmlearn.org. And in the segments, we take a look at 3 areas of the house. The first one covers the kitchen and dining areas. Today's segment will look at the entrance hall, hallways, and living areas. And then segment number 3 looks at the bedroom and bathroom areas. And in each segment, we'll be looking at the area from the point of view of people who have perception problems or mobility problems or cognition problems. And all of that is explained in that first segment. So let's talk about the living area.
Let's go into the living room. The first thing, of course, is entering the house, and this is the entryway, and take a look at this from a perspective of if you had mobility problems, like strength in your legs or balance problems. You can see that that step is really small and kind of narrow, and it's a different level from the next step up into the house. So if you had some strength problems, you might have difficulty figuring out, ooh, can I even step up that high?
And if you do step up, you have to open the door outward.
Right.
Which then is going to pull you off of balance. And there's no handrail. There's nothing except that moving door to hold on to if you start to lose your balance.
That's right. The step isn't wide enough, so you don't have anywhere to put your foot except back down on the ground to open the door. The other thing, from the visual perception part of it, those shadows make it look like you're not sure where the door handle is or how, is there a stair there? It's the same color as the foundation.
Right.
It's very confusing.
So you can see already that somebody could have a fall getting into the house. Once you're in the house, though, the important thing is lighting. And you have to be able to turn on the light when you go into a room or into the home. This light switch is the same color as the wall, and that's very common. But if you can't see it to turn it on, then you're going to be in more danger as you go into a darkened room.
Exactly right. You know, interior design is wonderful, but in certain circumstances it can cause a problem. One of the really inexpensive things people can do is just put some tape on the faceplate, or even that glow-in-the-dark tape or something.
That's right. There are some real fancy gadgets that light up the room with motion detectors, and we'll give you some resources later that you can look at if you want to get more fancy than the tape. Once you get into the room, you can see that this is well lit. However, sometimes people with mobility problems do what we call furniture walk, where they will hold on to the pieces of furniture as they move across the room.
And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. But, boy, you have to be sure the furniture you're grabbing a hold of is stable. And that doesn't look very stable.
This is wicker furniture. It could easily tilt over. The other thing is as you walk and push against it, it could slide out from under you. And that angle to get in between and around those pieces of furniture is really narrow.
It's really narrow, and the legs stick out. So this is asking for trouble.
Once you get into a room, you have to be careful about clutter.
Right.
And especially if you have somebody in the house with dementia or cognitive problems. This pair of scissors sitting out is not a safe thing to have. Someone with dementia might just pick those up and carry them around and not even be fully aware. And if they were to fall or stumble, that could be a big danger.
And part of that is because of the impulsivity. We go over that in the first segment about some of the issues that are concerned with that.
Now, the clutter here makes it even difficult to pick up what you might want. For example, that remote control is kind of hidden over there. So try to pay attention to clutter in the areas.
And speaking of some clutter in the hallway, most of us have some little fan or a heater or something we'll put in a hallway or into a room. But take a look at this picture. The first thing that pops out is that electric cord is lying there. You know, if you're going to have an appliance that's going to be there for a lot or a long time over the whole summer or the winter, you need to tack up the electric cord, because a person with perception problems may not really figure out what that is, and a person with mobility problems has a shuffling gait, may get caught up in it very easily. And then stepping over that fan would be tough.
Would be difficult to try to get into that room.
Yeah.
You're right. Stepping over things on stairs is a big problem. You certainly don't want to have clutter on your stairs, but sometimes we forget about our pets. And if the animal is in your way going up and down the stairs, and then moves as well, that can be a real danger for falling.
Yeah, dogs are one thing. You know, cats are quick and they're quiet and they love to try and run between your legs. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen with hip fractures who tell me, well, it's because I tripped over my dog or my cat ran between my legs and I fell. You might want to kennel or cage your dog or cat, or put them in a different area of the house, like when you're cooking or if you have guests.
That's right. So think about the animals as well. This is an example of a room that is well laid out. There's no clutter in the center of the room. There's no clutter on those side tables. The furniture is sturdy. You could hold on to it if you needed to get around.
Right.
It's pushed up against the wall. We don't have cords. The carpet is one pattern.
Right. Nothing in the way there. This is a really good example of a safe living area.
Now, we talked about animals and objects on the stairs, but even if you have a completely clear stair area and you don't have a handrail, the stairway is dangerous.
Exactly right. Because you think, well, I can just hold on to the wall or lean onto the wall, but if you have balance problems and you don't have the reflexes or the reaction time to correct it, if you start feeling like you're falling down, grabbing onto the wall is not going to help out at all.
No, it's a long way down to a tile floor.
Right, and also perceptually, those steps don't look very separated there. Sometimes people will put colored tape on the edge of steps so that people can discriminate that.
Think about that at your entrance steps, or if you have a sidewalk that has steps down as well, because the concrete can be the same color.
Exactly right.
This is an area where you do have two different textures, but it can be unsafe. You want to tell us why?
Right. Well, for the first thing is you have two different patterns, and to someone with perceptual problems, this may look like, the carpeting may look like a step down or a step up. And then also from a mobility perspective, if someone shuffles or has some difficulty with their footing, they can be shuffling along fine on the tile, but then their foot hits that carpet, comes to a complete halt, and then they may fall. That's particularly true with people with late-stage Alzheimer's. We'll start to have that shuffling walk.
Or Parkinson's disease
Right.
as well. Shoes can be a big problem in this situation. Look how thick the soles on those shoes are. And yes, they're supportive, and yes, they're lace-up and secure shoes, but the very thickness of the sole can be a problem for people who shuffle.
And you know, Martha, you probably remember this as well, as we used to tell older people to wear athletic shoes like this because they're so supportive and cushiony and sturdy. But actually what happens is you reduce the amount of feedback from your feet as to where your feet are in space and where you're stepping. That's called proprioception. It's kind of a complicated concept of nerves and muscles working together to let you know where you are in space and where you're putting your foot.
Think about mountain climbers. They wear very thin-soled shoes so that they can feel where their feet are and get a grip.
Get a grip.
Shoes like this are really much safer for somebody, especially who has mobility or cognitive problems, because you can feel where your feet are in space, yet they still are non-slip and sturdy. We talked about different surfaces. This is not a carpet. You're not going to trip over this necessarily, but it's two very different patterns.
Right, and if you have some perception problems where you have difficulty figuring out if things are like this or like this, your brain is not processing, just the two different colors there and the two different patterns make it look like, to someone with perception problems, make it look like it could be different levels, like they could be stepping down or stepping up. And this is one of the reasons why people with Alzheimer's will come to a halt when they reach a threshold. It's not because they don't understand about thresholds or they've forgotten it. It's because their brain is telling them, don't cross over, you're going to fall into a pit, or this is too high a step to get up, so they'll just come to a stop.
Patterns can be a problem in many different ways. The pattern that we just saw was problematic. This pattern is a problem because it almost looks like that floor is moving.
It does. It does.
You can also see how the darker stripes in that floor could look like they were canyons, and that the floor is not even the same level. So someone with perceptual problems could have a lot of trouble navigating this room.
Exactly right.
This is a similar kind of situation, although it doesn't look like it's moving. It looks like some of those are higher than others if you have perception problems.
Right. And this may sound really kind of absurd to you, but each of those colors may appear to someone with visual perceptual problems as being a different height or a different texture. And so they may look at that and may not even want to walk on the carpet, which you may think, well, what's scary about this? And just think in terms of what you have in the house, and is your loved one sort of afraid or hesitant to walk on that surface? Start looking at the textures and the patterns.
That kind of hesitation, because of reflex problems, can cause people to fall.
Exactly right.
Now,
now this is a really good door for mobility, actually.
It is.
The doorknob,
the lever handle.
Yeah, it's great. And also, the door handle is a different color from the door paint.
Yes, you can see what you're doing. You can see how it's opening. The light is good. But if you've got dementia, one of the big problems that people encounter is their loved one with dementia wandering. Remember something so simple as taking the key out of the lock. Now, people with dementia, just because they lose their memory, it doesn't mean that they lose their ability to do many things. And so they don't have the insight and the judgment to know not to walk out because they might get lost. So the impulse is to turn the key and leave the house.
And they're gone. It's called stimulus-bound behavior. We've seen this a lot in our patients, and they see a door and they go through it. And this door has light coming through it. Wonder where the light's coming from. Just out they go.
It looks very attractive. What can you do besides taking out the key? Well, there are products that are sold so that you can mask a door. This is actually a curtain that comes down over the door and looks like a bookshelf, so that the stimulus is not to walk through a bookshelf, because the stimulus is to walk through a door.
Right, so they'll walk by it instead of trying to get through it. The other thing is there are locks that will open if there's a fire, that sort of thing too. But this is the easiest thing, and just putting a curtain over the door helps.
Sometimes people even put up a big stop sign, and that will be enough to help. Windows are similar to doors. You don't think about a grown adult climbing out of a window. But again, people with cognitive problems, they will start fussing and fiddling with things, and if something opens, they'll go through it.
A lot of people think that somebody with dementia really doesn't know how to work windows and doors. That's a very old learned skill
That's right.
that people have for a long time. And so just because they're a little confused or have memory problems doesn't mean they can't get out a window. They can't open a window.
Without insight or judgment, and without sort of some of the common sense that goes with that, they're not going to say, oh, I shouldn't go out this window, it's high up off the ground, you know, I could fall, or I should use the door.
Right. Likewise, with that stimulus boundedness, now this looks like candy. These are actually those little chips that have a scent in them that you melt in a burner. And here someone's keeping them in a little jar for future use. But it could look like candy or some sort of food, or they're just pretty and might want to pick them up and put them in their mouth. Someone with dementia. Again,
the stimulus-bound behavior of picking things up and exploring it with their mouth. Just the same with plants. Now, I don't know if this is a poisonous plant. I don't know that much about houseplants. But chances are lots of people might not know whether it's poisonous. So either get artificial plants or put the plant somewhere that it's not interesting to eat and put in your mouth.
Right.
Candles are beautiful, and they provide a whole lot of comfort and atmosphere, and people like to have them. But if you have somebody with cognitive problems and memory problems, and you leave them alone with a candle and a way to light it, chances are they will light it and forget. And this is a great way to start a really nasty fire.
Yeah, a lot of people use candles now to freshen the air, and you can't leave them on there like that. Especially, this one is on a shelf, and you might think, well, I'll put the candle on a shelf, and that'll keep it away from the person. Don't count on it, because they'll see it and may light it, or may go over and try to put out the fire with their fingers or whatever. The candle to the left of this one actually is one of those battery-operated ones that lights up and changes colors, but you don't light it. So it gives off a nice glow, but you don't have to worry about setting anything on fire.
Paper shredders, people are warned about identity theft. They're warned about getting rid of their documents. But paper shredders are dangerous, and someone with dementia is very likely to fiddle or play with this or try to put fingers in it or put things in it that don't belong there.
Really?
So you need to disable them, move them out of the way for people.
Right.
We've shown you a lot of different ideas and different areas in the house. Here are some helpful resources that you can look at.
You know, each of these, and we've looked at these, and they had some amazing things. Assistive devices, alarms. There are motion detector alarms that can be used at doorways, even alarms that will say, get away from the door, Grandpa, or Grandpa's at the back door, you better go. So these are really helpful. So get online and look at these, and you can even order them off of these websites. But first of all, the most important thing is to take a look in your home, go through the areas, look at textures, look at the different patterns, the clutter. They're always talking about get organized, but really you need to reduce the clutter and look at the safety issues first, and then you can get better ideas from these sites.
You might even try shuffling through your house to see what might catch you up. Walk through thinking, if I had mobility problems, could I do this? If I had cognitive problems, would this be something that was dangerous? And then look at the resources and find some things that might be able to help you make your home safer.
Well, in the next segment, we're going to be going into the bedroom and the bathroom area. So we hope you'll join us for that one too. Thanks.